And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, as always, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. The Dukes moved to 2-0 with a 13-6 win over Gardner-Webb in the first home game of the season at Bridgeford Stadium. A sellout crowd in Harrisonburg and an absolutely immaculate tailgate atmosphere. We're going to get to all of the breakdown of a game that was, let's be honest, a little tighter than any of us expected. So we're going to have that discussion as we go throughout the broadcast. A couple special guests tonight. We're going to get to one of our player mentions in just a minute, our Skyline Financial Player of the Game. So stay tuned for that. And then we are going to have a discussion about the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame with Will Driscoll. Going to learn more about the history of the Hall of Fame and how you can get involved and its significance that it plays in helping to recognize some of the athletes from JMU history who are now memorialized in that Hall of Fame and then potential future inductees into that space. Just some really great stuff going at the Hall of Fame. We thought it was an important segment to bring it as part of our Montpelier Collective spotlight that we do each and every week here on the show. But as always, we want to thank our sponsors. Again, the Montpelier Collective. It was great to see as we went throughout the tailgate lots yesterday, so many people with Champions Drive bourbon at their tailgates. Again, when you purchase and support Champions Drive, you are supporting student athletes on campus, not just from our football and basketball programs, but from all of the sports programs at JMU. And if you've been following the Montpelier Collective accounts over the last couple of weeks, we're doing a really great job of being transparent about who those athletes are, but also bringing you behind the scenes of what it's like to be a student athlete on campus at JMU. So stay tuned for lots more of that as we go throughout the weeks to come, because we want you, the donors and supporters of the collective, to be able to have a little bit more insight into what's happening in that very important initiative that happens behind the scenes and helping our programs be as successful as they can be and maintain their status at the top of their conferences and on the national level. I want to also thank our friends again from Skyline Financial. They'll be on in just a second. Where's Woody? Really excited to see the team. Mike Norwood and company from Where's Woody down at North Carolina in a couple of weeks. He's going to have some of the new merchandise that is supporting all of our programs on campus. I want to thank our friends from Talent Core, Your Purple Nation. It was great to see Carol Benassi at the game yesterday, as well as seeing what they're doing at their two locations in Northern Virginia, as well as Richmond. And then remember, October 6th, there'll be a new location in the coastal Virginia area where you can get your JMU gear. And then finally, our friends from Shoker Enterprises. Thank you to all of our sponsors for their support of JMU Sound Off. And with that, we're going to bring on our other hosts for tonight, Taylor Atkins, Steve Brown, Michael Evangelista. Guys, we're going to kick off every show now with kind of our fast thoughts. Lots to talk about in this game that we're going to get to as we go throughout the broadcast. But Michael, maybe your fast thoughts from what was a game that had us all a little anxious in the first half as we went through the afternoon at Bridgeford Stadium.
Anxious is one way to say it, John. I'll start off positive, right? 2-0 is 2-0. But if it comes down to it, back to basics. We've got 2 weeks to figure it out. We've got to look at the scheme, refine the scheme. I like to think the next 2 weeks is a bit of a come to Jesus moment for the program on where we are personnel-wise on and off the field. So luckily, we're 2-0, and we're not coming off yesterday with an L. So I'm happy about that.
There you go. Steve.
Well, if it's come to Jesus, it's not going to wait for 2 weeks. It's going to be probably today or tomorrow morning. And if you need a little Jesus awakening, I can come to Harrisonburg. Some positives. There are some positives, but I'm not going to get into those now. But I enjoyed the crowd, love the students that stayed. My theme for tonight, lack of consistency in all three phases. We had flashes of consistency in all three phases, but we lacked the consistency. If you want to watch a television show, and you'll know why I tweet this all the time, full measure means something, watch Breaking Bad. There's a show they have one called Half Measure and one called Full Measure. And once you watch those two shows, you'll understand. If we really want to do this, we got to do it in a full measure. It's got to be for a full 60 minutes. And that'll be what I'll talk about tonight when we get into it.
Yeah, my fast thought is this. Not the score we expected, not the outcome I think we expected, but not in the manner in which it happened. But the thing that I was really impressed by is just how both this coaching staff and the players who were interviewed in the postgame owned it. They were transparent. They were upfront saying, there's a lot that we have to work on, but they embraced it. And that's a sign of a program that, again, has a healthy leadership core, but also a leadership group in that locker room that knows very well what needs to be fixed and what needs to be done to get this team where we all want to go. And that was my takeaway from the aftermath of this game, is they didn't shy away from any of the discussion around it. And that's the best recipe for getting us where we all want to be, and excited to see what they do over these 2 weeks. Taylor.
It was the second game in a row that I had to watch on television. Have not seen this team in person yet this year. I'm looking forward to my first in-game experience in 2 weeks down in Chapel Hill, but have a lot of thoughts about yesterday's game and really the last 2 weeks, but look forward to sharing with those later on in the show. And but for right now, what I'd like to do is continue a segment that we started last week and go ahead and bring on Tim Nelson with Skyline Financial Partners and have him do the introduction for this week's Player of the Week. Tim.
Good evening. Well, that was a lot of fun this weekend. I brought my whole family to Harrisonburg, and it was a blast as always. You always got to look at the positives. And we won. Like Michael said, we're 2-0. So that's what you got to focus on. So this week's Player of the Week. First off, I want to have some honorable mentions. So Dobbs had 10 tackles. That was fantastic. But at the end of the day, it was a low-scoring game, and we needed some energy in the second half. So if you remember the way that the second half started, we got to stop. And then we actually started with a short pass to Cam Ross. But then what happened was we had a 6-yard run, a 9-yard run, a 5-yard run, and a 10-yard run by the same player. And that opened up a 20-yard breakaway run by Petaway. So the Player of the Week is actually Tyler Purdy. And the reason why is he was the energy burst that this team needed in the second half to provide us with the win. So I know I've been looking at social media and I've seen a lot of stuff, good and bad. But at the end of the day, we won, right? And I feel like that was one of the big reasons that happened. So we wanted to bring him on now. So here he is. Tyler's actually on the show. So congratulations. So I guess my first question to you is, what was it like coming on? So you transferred here, you came here just like Chesney did from Holy Cross. What was it like coming onto the stadium to sold out, and we'll get everybody else's opinion too. But what was it like coming and, being in front of everybody and seeing Bridgeforth?
Yeah, first of all, just thank you for the award. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. And then, yeah, I mean, it's like how it's every kid's dream, honestly, being in front of that many people. It's a lot different than Holy Cross for sure in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'll give you that. But it was awesome. We were all fired up, ready to go. I know us Holy Cross guys, we weren't really used to that. So it was pretty cool to have just that much support and that many people there at the game. It was pretty awesome.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah, we were talking beforehand about living in Harrisonburg. So it's always a fun place to be for college, for sure. One of my questions that I had for you is what went through your mind? Because obviously Adai got hurt early, and then it was really you and Petaway, and this was definitely Petaway had a great game too. So what went through your guys' mind? When the scheme moved to you and you knew, because you probably knew before the drive started that the scheme was going to move your direction. What was going through your mind when you were thinking about what you were going to get done? Because you definitely ran downhill and you ran some people over. So what was going through your mind when you got the call to, run it multiple times in a row?
Honestly, I think, are you there? Sorry, I think I might have cut out a little bit, but no, I mean, it's just normally what I do. Just try to run behind the offensive line. They did an absolutely amazing job, I thought, all the way Pat McMurtry, Carter Sweezy, Potts, Tanner, all those guys. Jesse did a great job. And so they make the holes for me up there. And whenever I see him, I just hit him, run downhill. It's just how I run the ball, honestly. And so, yeah, we saw that IO went down and he just got a little banged up. He'll be, I think he'll end up being all right. He'll be fine. But yeah, nothing really changes. I've played a lot of football in the past. So, I mean, just business as usual, honestly, just going in there and it's just a lot more eyes watching. That's basically the only thing that really changed. So, that's really it.
That's awesome. And then what would you say are you gearing up the most for as you prepare for going down to UNC in 2 weeks? That could be an answer just for the running back group. Cause I mean, at this point it's established that we have a 3-headed monster. So what is the running backs doing to prepare for UNC? And then what is the team looking towards preparing for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, we always have the same goals of the running back group. Just make sure that we have as many explosive plays as we can as possible, be 100% with ball security and pass pro. I think we've done a good job so far in that area. And then just continue to do what we do. Just be the spark plug that when we're not doing so well, just be able to be the guys that can really help jumpstart our offense and be the playmakers. And so, yeah, and then just going to UNC, it's really the same thing. We want to, continue to try to produce as many X plays, explosives as possible, but also just keeping it steady with just the holding on to the ball, no turnovers, make sure that we have good ball security in the pass row again, make sure that Alonso back there, he's well protected, and do what we can in the check down game as well.
Right. Well, I will say I was talking to Chauncey about this too. He had a really nice pick. The line of success is never in a straight line. It never just goes from point A to point B. There's always little ruts throughout any season. So I'm going to pass it back to the Skyline guys now to kind of open it up for some more questions. But it was nice to talk to you, man. And I loved getting able to meet you. And I look for, hopefully you get to come back and win the belt again. You like the belt?
Oh, I love it, man. This thing is awesome. It's a huge honor. This thing is sweet. So thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. It's an honor. It really is. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I want to thank Tim again for coming on. Tyler, if you can hang with us, I want to bring you on back for the next segment with some of the rest of the guys. But do want to thank Tim from Skyline Financial Partners. We've talked about this before, financial planning, whether you have not gotten into it yet, you're not familiar with it, or want someone to take another look at what you are doing. There is a QR code if you're watching the podcast on the screen right here, or you can visit them at skylinefinancialpartners.com. Check them out, reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to help you and look into that stuff. So, Tyler, I'm going to bring on the rest of the guys now because I think the rest of the group, we have some questions for you to kind of talk a little bit more about yesterday's game and also just your experiences in Harrisonburg for your first game day. So let me go ahead and kick it to Michael.
Tyler, first off, thanks for joining us, and really excited to have you on. Congrats again on winning the award, but also really nice job just like giving the team the shot in the arm they need in the second half. I got the chance to rewatch the game, and just seeing that drive and you just pounding the rock down the middle and just getting positive yards was really awesome to see. But as I always like to do, let's take a step back. Obviously I think you, McMurtry, Dobbs, probably all get band together once Chesney got the job at James Madison, but tell us a little bit about your journey to JMU, like what brought you in, and sort of like maybe what are some surprises since you've been on campus that you could share with our listeners?
No, yeah, I mean, the journey was definitely a crazy one. So after the Holy Cross season, I thought I was going to be done really playing football. I entered the transfer portal, but I mean, I really had like job offers lined up. So I was actually going to go start work. And then a funny story, I actually have the water bottle right here. I got asked to try out for the WWE in the winter. So I did that, and then I immediately did not like it at all. I honestly hated it. So I came straight from the tryout to come visit JMU once Coach Kennedy and Coach Ches and everyone got the job. So I came right up here, visited, fell in love with like the school of this place is just amazing. So it was really an easy choice after that. Once I came and visited, they wanted me to come with them, and so it was an easy yes.
Awesome. And what's your major? Like, what are you studying while you're here?
So I'm doing the grad program. I'm doing the cyber intelligence. So we learn about like cybersecurity and kind of the basics to go along with that. So it's been pretty cool. I didn't get much experience learning about technology and kind of cybersecurity. So at Holy Cross. So I've been really enjoying learning about it.
So did you go up to Connecticut for your tryout? Did you have to go down to Florida?
No, they're based in Orlando, Florida. That their tryout facility is like the WWE Next. So I really liked actually like the wrestling portion of it. That was pretty fun and everything. Got to see like John Cena, like Logan Paul, which was pretty cool. But it was the camera stuff and some of the acting. I'm not really good when it comes to acting or doing the camera stuff. That stuff's pretty hard, and it was very serious. It was way more intense than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's a group that's headquartered up in Stamford, Connecticut, and then they've got the facility. You'll see some of my wrestling promos that I cut during the season. It is hard. Those are difficult, but you would have been good actually. But yeah, there's a lot more to the business side of this than just the wrestling part. That's the part people don't really know. But we'll talk about WWE some other time. I won't bore you with that. Let me ask you, what did you all see? I guess if you in halftime that kind of had you guys thinking at the first series, and I went today, the nerd that I am, and I charted every play. So I've got 25 pages of stuff. So the first series was at 14:06 in the third quarter, and I guess at half, you guys kind of probably talked about things you saw, I'm assuming, and then thought about what you would be doing on that first series. Is that how that usually goes?
Yeah, that's how it went. And I think honestly, a lot of the struggles in the first half just came from just shooting ourselves in the foot. Just one guy missing the block here, just not executing the way that really should be. And it wasn't just one guy either. Like everyone was not doing their best. So and then when we came to halftime, we thought we could run the ball. Our O-line, I thought, was doing a great job run blocking. And so I think we just needed to run a little bit more downhill and just really try to get like the tough, 5-6 yards that'll eventually end up setting up the play action game and ultimately just be able to carry out drives.
What was your favorite play yesterday, if you have one? I've got one, but I figured I'd ask you.
My favorite play was probably one of the ones where I was blocking, I think, honestly, when I was blocking for Cam Ross to start the second half, or I was blocking for GP on his outside run that helped set up the touchdown, got us to like the 1 yard line.
That's what I have written. That's what I have written in my notes. So first play, jet sweep to Ross, Purdy with the block, and I wrote play of the game. So to me, that was what really spurred you guys on, because then the second play, it's you running downhill, shoestring tackle. You should have scored if that guy didn't trip you up. Mm-hmm. Third play is you with the ball with another great run. Fourth play, another run for a first down. Fifth play, Petaway runs. Mm-hmm. Sixth play, the pass to Penny. There was a pass interference that they didn't call. I know you can't say anything about the officials, but I can. But I won't do it with you on. Io then runs it at the goal line. Then Zoe tries to sneak it, and then you decide you've had enough and you pound it in. So it was, the pad level was great. I mean, I was watching your pad level and watching the O-line's pad level, and you get down. I mean, you abuse people when you hit them, and I just want to commend you for that and tell you how great it was just to watch you run.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I try to, the O-linemen work really hard to open up those lanes, and so I try to reward them by making sure I try not to miss any of those holes and just run right down off them, man. That's really what it comes down to. So no, it's fun. And for me, I always try to pride myself, always fall forward, whether you get stopped at the line, make sure you fall forward for at least a yard or two, because at the end of the day, that'll help move the chains and keep drives going.
The D-line they were bigger than I thought they'd be. When I was we were down on the second quarter and I was looking at those guys, I know they got some P4 transfers in there and you guys wore them down, but that was a pretty good size D-line for and FCS has good players. Don't get me. I mean, we were obviously you were there, we were there. We all know that they're great, but that was a bigger D line than I expected. Was it? And they were more talented than I expected. Did you all? I know you saw the tape, but they seemed to play harder than I saw. And I watched their Wofford game. They seemed to play better and harder than they did in the Wofford game. Did you all experience that too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think they were a good team, honestly. I mean, the score shouldn't have been what it was, obviously, but they were a talented team, and I think honestly a little bit of it came down to they have nothing to lose. Like, they're coming in there, they can lose that game, they're fine. That's not going to affect really their season or anything, their outcome. Like, they had nothing to lose, so they were playing hard. And I've been at Holy Cross, I've been in the same situation as them. When we go into UConn's house, we went into Buffalo's house, went in there, got a dub, losing to just BC and Army, the games that we should have won when I was at Holy Cross again. Like, we get fired. Those FCS teams get fired up to play those games, and those are the games we all circle on our calendar, and we're gonna take our best shot at those big opponents, because those are like the schools you dream about playing at, those big Power 5 schools. So when they came into our house, I'm sure they had the exact same mindset that I had at Holy Cross. So
yeah, Wofford beat them by a point at their place last week, and then Wofford came up here and beat the snot out of Richmond yesterday. Yeah, on the road. And so, they're a good FCS program. I'm with you. When we went down to Tech in 2010, we had the same chip on our shoulder. We think, we can beat you guys, and we did. So I didn't take those guys lightly at all. And I know you guys didn't either. I mean, they're a talented team, and the gap between FCS and FBS is really tight now. There's not really much of a gap. So I commend you guys for getting together, pulling that out, not throwing helmets at each other, not, which you wouldn't do anyway, because Chesney wouldn't put up with it. But I just commend you guys for pulling that out on a tough day. It was a tough day of work, but you guys will learn from it. So congratulations.
Absolutely. I will definitely learn from that one. And Coach Chesney says it all the time, but winning football games is tough, especially at this level, man. Like, I know it was ugly and everything, but I mean, a win is a win at the end of the day. And those fans had a right to be upset yesterday. I mean, it shouldn't have been even anywhere near like that score. But sometimes football is hard, and you're not going to get the best outcome every time. Like, stuff happens. So when stuff happens, you just got to react and keep going with the adversity and just keep going.
So Tyler, my final question for you is, you mentioned the word adversity, and the thing that I was the most impressed with in the aftermath of that game is, again, not only how Coach Chesney addressed it immediately in the post-game press conference, didn't shy away from it, but Jacob did as well. Speak to how you've seen this staff in your experience at Holy Cross deal with adversity in the past, and maybe use that as a catalyst to speak to how you think you all will approach these next 2 weeks going into what is going to be, if you're looking for a milestone game in the season, it's a game at North Carolina, an ACC program that if you win that game, it makes a lot of national noise. Your kind of message for maybe past adversity, how you think that will kind of be a roadmap for what the next 2 weeks will be like for this program.
Yeah, I think to have success next week, we got to, I see this week as a little bit of a failure, honestly. So well-managed failure is kind of the best way to have success in kind of in the long run. So, and then I think, Coach Chesney always harps on that. So he does a great job with making sure that whenever we are faced with adversity, that we're able to overcome it. And I think they just continue to do a good job. That's one of the first things he tells the team and harps on. So I think he does a good job helping us get ready for when adversity strikes, that we're going to be ready and prepared to strike back against it.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, my last comment of the night is I got a chance to hang out with the Holy Cross clan in P-Lot and F-Lot yesterday. And I just wanted to say on air, because I think it's really just refreshing to see just how appreciative, how grateful, and how supportive the families, the girlfriends, everyone that made the trip down to Harrisonburg was yesterday, just of the experience. And I think it spoke to just the relationships that you all formed at Holy Cross and that bond, to see it transition to Harrisonburg. I know that every JMU person that got a chance to meet them, both at Charlotte and yesterday, just genuinely appreciate it, to the McMurtry's, to your families, to Jacob's families, to the others who made the trip down to Harrisonburg, who were wearing a different shade of purple last year. I just hope you all felt embraced. And just know that it was reciprocated by all of us who had a chance to meet you, as you are now part of the JMU family, and it shined bright yesterday. And despite a difficult game that ended still in a win, I hope everyone really enjoyed the trip to Harrisonburg, and it's the first of many. And just know that it was really cool to bring you into the JMU family the way you did yesterday. And to you, Tyler, first of all, thank you for making the choice to come to JMU. And then second, thank you for all you do off the field. You guys give us something to talk about on shows like this, but also give us something to watch on Saturdays. And as a part of this program, we're always going to say thank you for that. And we wish you both health and good success as you go throughout the rest of your journey here at JMU. But we're excited to have you as a part of the family.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. It means a lot. So, this place has been absolutely amazing. And so I'm just honestly blessed and really grateful to be here at JMU. It's really the community that you guys have here is just unbelievable. And so I'm just really blessed to be a part of it. I wish I could be here for a few more years, honestly, but
maybe we get you back as a grad assistant or something. Well, you never know. You never know how these things go full circle. So
absolutely, 100%. Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I really
Tyler, thanks again, man. And enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you down in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Have a great one. Thank you.
All right. And with that, we are going to get to a special edition of the Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. This week, big focus on the Hall of Fame class inductees into JMU. And we thought we would take a little bit of a different approach with this. So it is now time for a Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. All right. And with that, we are going to welcome Will Driscoll from the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame to the discussion. Will, first of all, I just thank you for being willing to spend some of your Sunday night talking a little bit about the Hall of Fame. It was a big weekend for Hall of Fame inductees in Harrisonburg this weekend. A number of athletes, as well as our 2004 national championship discussion, which was just great to see that team that really lit a kind of fuel behind this program's rise and growth to what it is today. And we wanted to have you on because there's been a lot of change with the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. And we thought it'd be great for our audience to understand that, because there are some great JMU's players from the past recognized in that facility, and the potential for additional members of the JMU athletic community to be recognized in the future. So Will, first of all, introduce yourself and tell fans a little bit about the history of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, because I think it sets up what we're going to talk about next in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate it, Jonathan. Thanks for having me on. Love talking Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Love making connections with definitely the colleges and universities and the great NCAA programs that we have in the state. But yeah, my name is Will Driscoll. I'm the executive director for the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. And I think one of the most important things to know about our Hall of Fame is we are the official sports Hall of Fame for Virginia. So That's not to take anything away from the regional halls of fame there are, like the Hampton Roads Sports Hall of Fame or the Chesterfield County Sports Hall of Fame, or even the colleges and universities. But we are the official Sports Hall of Fame for the state. So we recognize athletes, coaches, contributors from all over Virginia that have strong connections to the Commonwealth. And I've been with the Hall now for just over 7 years. I've been in the big chair for about 5.5 years, taking over for Eddie Webb after a long 24-year run as president of the Hall. And yeah, I came on at a time of transition in 2017 where the Hall of Fame, for pretty much in its entire existence at that point, had been a museum platform, with from 2005 to 2017, culminating with a 32,000 square foot facility in Portsmouth. The Hall of Fame was founded in 1972. All the way through 2017, there was some sort of physical museum presence in Portsmouth, and that just no longer became feasible. You know, people's habits change, relationships change. And so the board of directors at the time when I came on kind of made the decision that the brand of the Hall was bigger than 4 walls and a roof. The museum was wonderful, but the museum wasn't going to be long-term sustainable for us. So what do we need to do with the brand of the Hall of Fame? Well, we need to continue to tell our inductees stories. We need to highlight strong connections to Virginia. We need to highlight not just the past, but the present, and support the future. And we do that through events, programs, creating our own content, similar to JMU Sound Off. We have our own podcast. And we also do a lot of community initiatives through the platform of sports, whether that's through our student athlete scholarships, or whether that's through a mental health initiative that we do with youth athletes here in Hampton Roads. We really try to tie together the past, present, and future of sports in Virginia. Now, that being said, I know a lot of times you'll do a word association that says Hall of Fame means exhibits, means museum, means something like that. Well, that's still a part of what we do. It's just in a bit more of a 21st century model of engagement. So instead of going to one large scale facility, we've decided over the last few years, let's break the state into regions, figure out where our inductees are from, where their initial touch points to the Commonwealth were, and let's create ways to celebrate them there. And so we've always had the presence in Hampton Roads, but now we've added, just in the last year, a presence in Henrico County for Central Virginia. And that was our first step in this process. And it was a big step. It's a step that we've never taken before. But now that we've taken that step, we're now saying to ourselves, what's next? Is it Southwest Virginia? Is it Northern Virginia? Is it the Valley? Is it Southside? You know, let's really figure out how we can take the Hall of Fame to the rest of the state of Virginia, as opposed to always saying, come to us. Because there are sports fans all over the state. And being a Virginia native myself, and I'm sure everybody who's traveled the state, it's a big state. So you can't always expect people to come to you. So we're trying to do something that's a bit different, especially in the state Hall of Fame sphere. But I think it's something that if we get it right, it will be unique to Virginia and something we can call our own.
So speaking of unique to Virginia, I want, because I think it's really important for our audience to understand that obviously it's important to the athletes to have that historical recognition, and that just the awareness about their contributions to not only their school, their institution, but also, again, to that Virginia sports landscape. Why, from your perspective, is this Hall of Fame so important? And why is it so important that people get involved in the nomination process and helping to, again, find future honorees for this Hall of Fame, so that we keep their history and their rich contributions alive for generations to come?
So I'm a Norfolk native, and I love answering this question. And I'm happy you asked it, because to me, it's something that I've really, from day one working at the Hall of Fame, even though I'd known about it as a kid, because it was always here in Hampton Roads, really learning about the history of the Hall of Fame and sports in Virginia has really kind of helped me craft this answer. And I think that our Hall of Fame is extremely important because we don't have the NFL team to call our own, the NBA team to call our own, Major League Baseball. We don't have the professional, the top level professional sports. Don't let some of my friends in minor league baseball hear me say we don't have professional sports.
We won't tell Parney. We won't tell Parney at the Squirrels that.
That's right. We do have professional sports, but we don't have those teams where somebody can come here, wear our jersey for 10 years, and we claim as our own. Yeah. So where do our inductees come from? They come from our hometowns. They may have moved here when they were younger and they grew up here. They've performed or done great things at one of our 37 NCAA sanctioned programs. And that number may go up soon because there's a couple of schools that are applying for NCAA membership in the coming years. So the colleges, the universities, the hometown heroes, to me, that's what makes our Hall of Fame important. And especially when you start talking about other areas of the state or those regions I discussed earlier, being a Hampton Roads native, we're 757. We take great pride in the athletes, coaches, and contributors that have come from the 757 area code. But so does 804. So does 540, 703 up in Northern Virginia. There's so much civic pride when it comes to sports in Virginia, especially when you break the state into those regions, that we have to figure out how we can provide that spotlight or put a spotlight on those regions through an inductee or multiple inductees. And one of the things that we've been very, very good at in our honors court committee, especially in the last 6-7 years, is creating classes that do create those touch points across all of Virginia and not really focus on one region.
So I was going to ask you, for friends who are not familiar with who from JMU has been recognized, can you speak to maybe some of the players from JMU's athletic history that are currently recognized in this Hall of Fame? And then maybe my second part to that question is, what is the nomination process to look like? Somebody I'm going to say is Christy Morgan, potentially from JMU field hockey. Does she get possibly a nomination in future? Maybe to those two things: who's in the Hall of Fame from JMU, maybe some of the highlights, and what would a nomination process look like, and how can fans get involved in that if they feel strongly that there is a Duke who should be recognized?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, because we're not a Hall of Fame without the inductees, but we also have processes that we need to follow. And our nomination pool over the last 5.5 years has really gotten deep. And so we've always had great classes, but we're no longer looking at them saying these are top heavy classes. The 8 or 9 or 10 people that get through ultimately and make up the class, they're going through pretty much a gauntlet when you're looking at all of the nominations that we have now. So from JMU, you look at the Gary Clarks, you look at the Charles Haleys, Dean Ehlers, Lee Morrisons, David Teal, probably the greatest writer in Virginia history. He's a undergrad at JMU. Lefty Driesell, 10 seasons on the sideline at JMU. But one of the things that I've really taken the time over my 5.5 years in this role is, I look at a school like JMU, and we have 7 inductees that have connections out of our 363. I never say that I will promise you that somebody will get in, but we also want to see more nominations for worthy JMU potential inductees. And so we want to make sure that the supporters of JMU know how they can get involved in that process. And the process is actually very simple to get it started. It's then a bit more involved as you start to build out the nomination. So it's as simple as just filling out the nomination form, which is on our website. You mentioned Coach Morgan. Coach Morgan is still active, so she would need to be retired for a year before she gets nominated. And the reason why we do that is because we want to take away all potential roadblocks to attendance. Because if we're inducting 8, 9, 10 people, once we put, to use the buzzword of the day, their name, image, and likeness on our flyer, people expect them to be there. Yeah. And we want to make sure that they are there to celebrate and be a part of that moment as well. But so getting back to the actual process, you fill out the nomination form. But then what I always tell people is, while that is step one, and that means the nomination becomes active, you also have to tell this person's story. How do you do that? You do that through other accomplishments, other accolades, media links that have talked about that. You do it through letters of support and recommendation from peers, players, coaches, friends, family. You really want to kind of build out this file that's going to go through our committees, because you might be putting this person's name in front of somebody for the first time. And while we all like to say we're sports fans, especially these days, with having all of the information that we want at our fingertips, we sometimes get stuck in our own little tunnels and bubbles. So you have to assume that somebody on one of these committees is learning about, say, a Coach Morgan in the future for the first time. So you have to tell that story through the nomination process. And I can promise you that our committees do review these nominations. They review them front to back, because I make sure they review them front to back. I want to make sure that I have an informed committee, so that when we announce that class, we can justify that every single one of those people is worthy of Virginia Sports Hall of Fame induction.
That's awesome. Well, Will, my final question to you. So fans that they're hearing what you're saying, they're interested in learning more. What are ways that people can get involved, and how can they learn more information about the Hall of Fame outside of stopping by the exhibit, for example, that's here in Henrico? Just kind of your pitch to people listening on this who may want to get more involved.
Absolutely. So the best thing to do, we're very active on social media. So you can go to our website, vasportshof.com. But then we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. We put our story out there because we have a great story to tell. And it's not just our story. It's the story of all of our inductees or great things happening in sports in Virginia. So definitely the website, definitely social media. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. So we have a lot of community initiatives. Right now, we're currently accepting nominations for our Student Athlete Achievement Awards, which is a scholarship program for high school student athletes. You don't have to be a state champion athlete. The athlete is actually the base level for these scholarships. We're looking for student athletes that do great things in their academic communities as well as in their communities at large. We have multiple events throughout the year through golf tournaments or sometimes one-off events with inductees that provide engagement with our supporters. But then the induction, that's the biggest thing that we do. We're a Hall of Fame because we do the induction. And so we're about to start entering our next induction cycle. So the deadline for new nominations just passed last week. So we're going to be going through committees. We're looking at November 3rd, we'll vote on the class. And then we hope to make the official announcement the Monday after Thanksgiving. So that would be Monday, December 2nd, I believe. So just stay up to date on everything that we do, because what we do now is what we currently do and what we will continue to do, but there's always the opportunity to do more. And the more awareness and visibility we can grow by getting to other areas of the state and finding those opportunities, the more we can do. I always look at what we do now is just the baseline. So every time I talk to somebody, I say, this is our baseline, let's add to it. And so the more support we can get through multiple means, the more we can do. And I want us to really create a platform that other states look at Virginia and say, they do it right.
Awesome. Well, Will, I just want to say thank you to you and your board and everybody who serves on these committees for keeping the history alive. The great athletes from not just JMU, but from across the state who have made their contributions on the field and off the court and off the field of play, because it's important for the athletes of the future to know what's happened in the past. And we're just excited that there's more ways that people get involved in this process, and excited for to see future Dukes get their recognition in the years to come. And hopefully more of our listeners and more people across the community understand that there is a vibrant Hall of Fame and a great way for them to get engaged and involved. And we'll look forward to future conversations with you. We'll definitely be sure to announce the nominees, or the award winners on this show, but also you always have a platform to come back and get that message out any way you can. And just wish you all the best as you go through another nomination cycle.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me. Always love talking the Hall of Fame, and good luck to all of the JMU student athletes as the seasons have just started.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
All right. And with that, we are going to get to our recap of yesterday's game against Gardner-Webb, 13-6. Wanted to bring everybody back on. First of all, just a lot of great history involved, not only in that discussion, but this weekend in Harrisonburg. I was going to start off briefly with that. My first thought on the weekend, it was so awesome to see not only the 2004 class, but the other Hall of Fame inductees get their moment on the field at Bridgeforth, get the recognition they deserved. Seeing Mickey Matthews, seeing the 2014 that we've chronicled on this show a number of times. They may have a little bit more gray hair, maybe a few more bald spots, but some of them looked like they could strap the pads on again. But it was just it was awesome, because that team means a lot to all of us on the show and a lot to many of our viewers, and to get them recognized in the way they did was awesome to see. I'm gonna throw it out to the group though, guys. It was a rough first half, to say the least. None of us expected the outcome yesterday that we saw. Some struggles again in the running game. Again, not just from our perspective, but from what we heard in the post game from both Coach Chesney and the players. Maybe I'll start with you, Michael. You were on the sidelines a lot for yesterday's game, got a kind of an up close and personal view of the offense. Your initial thoughts on what's been a bit of a challenge through two games, as again we try to integrate such a large number of new players to this roster, new quarterbacks, new O-line configurations, lots of moving pieces, but it's been a bit of a challenge in the early going.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think before I go into that, like just some positive notes, the atmosphere at Bridgeforth, especially in the first quarter as we got things going, was just absolutely nuts. So shout out to everyone. The students showed out. I think
They were there early too.
They were there 30 minutes before kickoff. And I'll be honest, I was like, when have we ever saw that? So even before that, the tailgating scene was amazing. We had the sound off flag and convo. It was a fantastic time.
Shout out to Michael One Clutch, by the way. Michael One Clutch doing the sprint with the flag was awesome.
Oh yeah, he's a hoot. But yeah, really awesome energy. And to go back to your question, right? Like I took a ton of notes down, and in the start of the show, I talked about back to basics. And from an offensive perspective, like, there's this now 2 weeks of sort of like this musical chairs on the offensive line. We've played 9 offensive linemen, even switched out the center a couple times too. George Pettaway, our running back, fantastic game, by the way, like showed tremendous explosion. I think there's a lot of ways we can use him. He led the team with 4 catches. And I think Cam Ross had 2, and a bunch of people had 2. Your favorite, John, the Taylor Thompsons, the Logan Kyles, the tight ends, I think they had 3 total catches. Very little wide receiver production.
Yeah.
But I think like the part that was a bit alarming, and you could have probably, you didn't have to be on the sideline for this, was I felt like we really struggled with just communication. And I don't know why. And I don't know if it was the new headsets and like trying to figure out, do we go all in on that, or do we keep with the hand signals? But when you watch the 2 programs, we had one team that looked like we were trying to get lined up, who's going to go where, and there was 5 seconds left and we had to snap the ball, versus a Gardner-Webb. And mind you in the FCS, unless you're like North Dakota State and you pay for it like they did against Colorado, they don't have in-helmet communications. They called the play, and they seemed to know where the ball was supposed to go. And for some reason, it just seemed like maybe the offensive line was supposed to go left. The running backs were told to go. I don't know what happened, but it seemed like there was some communication breakdowns from just getting the plays on the field. And that's going back to basics, right? So I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know if it's a systematic thing. I don't know if it's a communication breakdown. I know they have 3 signalers on the sideline, but that was a bit interesting to watch. And I think also too, like going back to the time of possession, I think we lost it like 34 minutes to 22 or 26, something along those lines. Like Gardner-Webb really possessed the ball. And from an offensive side, like, we had that missed pass in the beginning. We tried to run the ball down the middle. Steve mentioned it. We had that nice little like play to Cam Ross on the reverse, which was good to see. But once again, it's like, are we going to run the ball down the middle? Are we going to Hail Mary it every time? Like, what are we? What is our identity? And like, who are the right players at the right time? So lots to think about here, and we'll play off each other a little bit here, John, but that's the initial thoughts, at least from the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, Steve or Taylor, whoever wants to take it, the big preseason talking point we had was that we lost 96% of our production. And I think when you looked at that as just a number and a talking point before we saw games on film or we saw practices and stuff, it was easy to say, well, we brought in all of this talent. And one of the points that we made on the show was, well, the team that gets it figured out the quickest is going to be successful. It's been a little bit more of a challenge. And I was really happy to see Coach Chesney in his post-game comments say, now we have 2 games of tape. What we thought might be a blip is now a trend. And he embraced the fact that we're going to have to look at personnel. We're going to have to look at scheme. We're going to have to look at making sure that we have the best athletes in the right positions to put this team in the best possible position to be successful on Saturday. Just curious where you're at as a part of that process, because remember, it's not just the 63 new players; it's a whole new coaching staff. That yes, some of them have coached together before, but we've got some new faces and new roles as well. So, Steve, where are you at with that in terms of how we're managing this transition, but also just again how we're embracing it so head on? There's been no sugarcoating by anybody, at least that I've heard, associated with this program so far.
Well, before I answer that question, I am going to take full responsibility for this loss because I wore these shorts in 2018 when Elon came to town, and we lost to Elon when we were a heavy favorite. So these shorts, no longer. These shorts
Steve,
are gone.
You should have known
These
better.
shorts are gone.
Everything for that Elon game should have been burned.
I thought with a Gardner-Webb and an FCS team, I would be able, and I did not take them as seriously as I should have.
There you
that
go.
I
So
would be
fans,
able to wear my shorts. So my shorts are gone.
direct
now
your attention
torn.
on social media to Mr. Steve Brown.
Gone.
The shorts are the problem.
They are gone. The shorts were the problem. So they're gone. I've cleaned up what I'm going to do. You know, what I heard Chesney say, and part of it, the other thing we also got is a new athletic director, which there's all kinds of overlays that we have, and I'm not making excuses. But I tweeted about this last week, and Coach Chesney picked up on it, or maybe he picked on it without me doing it, so I won't take credit. But I tweeted about this being Gardner-Webb Super Bowl, because it is, and it was. And I'm not so sure we took it as being our Super Bowl, even though the coach said in his press conference on Monday or Tuesday, whichever day he said it, it's also our Super Bowl. You heard Cole Potts last night say that we didn't necessarily everybody take that to heart. And when that happens, and we've seen that happen in our lives, so this doesn't just happen with these folks. I've seen it happen when I'm playing tennis, and I was telling Alice about this. I saw a team that was all bandaged. They had braces on everything. And me and my partner were rolling through the tennis season, and I saw these two guys show up with braces on their elbows and their knees, and other than not having one on their neck. And I'm thinking, we're going to roll these guys. They beat the crap out of us. We lost 6-2, 6-2, because they just knew the angles. They couldn't hit the ball hard, but they didn't have to hit it hard. And we completely discounted who they were. So it doesn't just happen at times, and I wasn't able to pull out the win. So, part of what I think we've got is some gelling issues. I agree with Michael, and Coach said it. He's got two games of tape. He ran 2 huddles during the August camp. At this point, there's nowhere to run or hide. And so, now we're going to decide, and he quoted the quote from Good to Great, which is, do we have the right people in the right position? Well, what Jim Collins says in that book, do we have the right people on the right bus, and do we have them in the right seats? So now we're going to determine who needs to go where. And I'm not going to call anybody out because I'm not going to do that. But there are definitely packages where we need people on that field that aren't on the field. And my hope is that this week, as we clean that stuff up, that we're going to look at that and say, you know what, we play much better when this group is together. And we make sure that we keep that group together and we execute. The other thing I want to make sure we do is for Alonzo. I've heard I don't know what happened. I know he hit his hand. I couldn't even see it on television. I don't know if he got cleated, because in the batted pass, it looks like he hit the guy's helmet with his hand, but I couldn't tell.
Jesse mentioned he was bleeding.
Yeah, I saw it when I was rewatching it. I saw he's bleeding down his arm. He came over, got taped up, and then Dylan went in for the one series. I don't know how he did it. So I don't know if somebody stepped on it. I don't know if he hit it on a helmet. Whatever he did, it doesn't look that, but I don't know. It didn't happen to me, so I don't know how bad it is. But at the end of the day, I hope we try to help him. Gardner-Webb had so many outlets for that quarterback. He had so many places to put the ball. He had so many, safety valves to go. And, my hope is that we start, looking at some of those types of packages. And so I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming any, but I'll just talk in generalities, because that goes with my theme of lack of consistency in all those 3 phases, and really kind of tightening that up. But I'll say more later. Let me let Taylor talk.
Yeah, so Taylor, you've had the benefit, and I think I'm going to say the benefit specifically for my position, because one of the tremendous additions to the college football landscape now is there are these big screens that go down the sidelines. So for the fans in Section 109, I will say that is a little rough, because you miss out on a lot of what you can see from. So my vantage point was nowhere near as good as yours on a lot of plays. I hope we can transition to a better way of blocking signals than ginormous screens. I know it's not just JMU, everybody's doing it, but we played football for 100 years without them. I think there's a better way. Just college football world. To your perspective from TV, Taylor, because I do think it is I went back and watched the game as well. What I saw on TV looked a lot different than what I saw in person, and I'm curious where your head's at through 2 games of struggles, but also 2 games where we've shown adversity and been able to make the corrections at halftime when other programs don't. And you never, when you get yourself in a dogfight, sometimes it's easy to kind of tuck and just say, hey, it's not our day. We haven't done that, and that's a sign of positive locker room energy and a sign of positive leadership. But also something we could build off.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, and again, haven't seen the games in person, the first 2 games, we just don't look good. I didn't say we aren't good. I'm saying we
Just
don't
different
look
things.
good. And if I'm honest, and we look at the schedule, Southern Miss looks to really be struggling right now. I don't really know how good Georgia State is. Louisiana Monroe has shown some flashes of excellence, and so
They beat UAB 32-6.
right,
A big win for them.
you know, and with a QB like General Booty, how do you not, have some power behind there? But I agree with what we talked about Charlotte last week. They had some great athletes on that team, and I agree with Steve and Michael and that Gardner-Webb is probably not a bad FCS team. At the end of the day, these were two of the easier games on our schedule. I don't think we did not dominate, nor did we play well. And on TV, we, both times I watched both games with people that probably don't watch JMU football as much as we do, and just to the common person, we didn't look good. I think those outside of the JMU bubble and the national media, and if you're just looking at the box score, you're watching the game. And I agree with Steve. It's lack of consistency. So there's concern that I have. Now, are we a homer podcast? Do we put a little fluff? 100%. If you're looking for a non-JMU bias, this isn't the podcast for you. And I'll say I highlighted, I think Steve talked about this either pre-show or earlier in the show. Bloomsburg, 2006. We're 2 years out the national championship. That 2006 team went on to lose a very controversial game up at Youngstown State in the playoffs. They went on to be 9-3 that year, 9-2 before they went into the playoffs. And it was 3-0, 13 minutes into the fourth quarter. Bloomsburg. We scored a touchdown in the 13-minute mark of the fourth quarter. And then I hope Coach Matthews isn't listening to this. We kind of scored the second touchdown with like 30. We could have taken a knee, but we kind of ran it in because we didn't want the score to look like 7-3. And that team went on to have a successful year. And then you fast forward to the opening of Bridgeforth, one of the most hyped up games in JMU football history, which was just a complete wet blanket. The final score was 14-9, but I've kind of blocked that game out. I didn't realize that it was 7-3 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I mean, it just
terrible.
And that team went on to be 8-5 in the FCS playoffs, won our first round game in Eastern Kentucky and lost to North Dakota State. Now, does that, or the fact that a lot of other teams, Penn State, Notre Dame, Oregon, you name it, have struggled this year? I mean, I agree that there's a possibility out there, and I agree, but none of that impacts whether JMU is good or not this year. I will say, and this might be some more homerism coming out, call it what you will. We're 2-0 after week 2. I don't like the 2-0. It hasn't looked good. I have concern for future games because we're going to face tougher competition. But at the end of the day, when you're 2-0, whether it's an ugly win or a real pretty win, you have every goal that you set out at the beginning of the season still in front of you. Conference championship, college football playoff. I mean, whatever you want to talk about, everything is still there. And so I think the schedule, we talked about this earlier before the season even started, the schedule is going to work out very nicely where we do have this bye week going into UNC. They're going to they had their new quarterback yesterday. Was it 38-20? They beat Charlotte. So they didn't exactly look dominant over a Charlotte team. I think UNC even lost, I don't know if he's coming back, but they lost their center in that game too. So you could be going with a bit of a handicapped UNC game. So that's a UNC team that's beatable. And when you heard Dave Riggert come on this show and talk about before the season started, and he said, this team just looks further ahead than the other two teams we've had, I got to take David his word on that and say the man knows what he's talking about. He probably watches and is in the presence of JMU football more than anyone outside of the players and coaches. So I'm not trying to add too much fluff. We did not look good. We do not look good. And if the team that showed up the last 2 weeks continues, we don't show any improvement, we're going to struggle to have a winning season. But I look at Chesney and his resume. I look at the players that we have and the talent we have on that team. And so until they start losing games, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I've seen JMU turn it around too much in their history. And that opportunity still is before us. Whether we achieve it or not is going to be up to how the players respond these next 2 weeks and how the coaching staff addresses everything.
So guys,
Can I add to that a little bit there,
yeah.
John? Like, I think Taylor brought a lot of good points, and this is sort of where I was going to here too. Is like at the end of the day, it's 64 new players, 30 new coaches, and mind you, this is not an excuse because Gardner-Webb had a brand new coaching staff too, 50 new players in that place, but that was also their first time going into Bridgeforth. And let's call it what it is. Dobbs mentioned it on the presser. He goes, when I ran out of the tunnel, I had a little glass eyes a little bit. Like I'd never seen anything like that before. And Taylor, you mentioned Central Connecticut State 2011. That was my senior year when we opened up Bridgeforth Stadium. I think they were a little wide-eyed a little bit there as well. Let's call it what it is. There's a human element to this. First time with calling plays down there. First time with that defense that has all new starters being asked to play key roles on this defense in that atmosphere. I'm sure they were a little rattled. Let's just call it what it is. And I'm glad it was against Gardner-Webb. I think that's where that's where my positive spin of this is that I'm glad it was against Gardner-Webb. I'm glad that we outlasted them. I think one of our listeners mentioned, at the end of the day, depth prevailed against Gardner-Webb. But get it out of the way now. Whatever it is, jitters, nervousness, whatever, afraid to make mistakes, whatever it is, get it out now again in Bridgeforth Stadium and come back again. And when we turn the page at Ball State after we beat UNC, right? So, I think there's a little bit of that human element. First time doing it at Bridgeforth Stadium, a lot of hype around this game. But I hope, the next 2 weeks we just figure it out and get it right.
So I'm curious now, we've talked a lot about the offensive side, but I'm curious on the defensive side, if there's an area that has been concerning to me through two games on defense has been the lack of pass rush when we're not blitzing. I think that was very obvious in the first half yesterday. To spin that, second half was better. We've made good adjustments at halftime, which is something that I've always kind of used as a measuring stick for a coaching staff is, are they successful in-game adjustments and maneuvers to put their players in better positions to succeed? We've seen that. But this was an area where I thought a lot of us had a lot of hope for when we looked at the names that we brought in here, that we would see more from this pass rush. Just throwing that out to the group, what you've seen. I guess my positive on defense is I've been really impressed with our secondary. Obviously, Jacob Dobbs has been as advertised. When he's in the game, he is a force. The substitutions at times of Dobbs out of the game has been something that has been odd to me. But again, I'm not a football coach. Just curious where your head is at with the defense. Let's be honest, only 13 points through 2 games. That's a real positive. Many FCS teams are putting up more numbers than what we're giving up in these games, and on the scoreboard, at least, even though we're giving up yardage, has looked pretty good on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's I agree with you. The pass rush, because it seems like we can turn it on and turn it off, and we saw it in Charlotte. When we decided we were going to rush the passer, we got to him without a blitz. Last night, when we decided to do it in their first series of the third quarter, we did it. When we had them pinned down in the second quarter, down on the 3-yard line, we decided we would do it. So I don't know what it is. The thing that bothers me the most with the defense, and there's some positives. You mentioned the positives. So I'm going to hit a negative. We have way too many missed tackles. I don't know where these arm tackles are coming from. I don't know why we're not wrapping up at the legs. Somebody hits low, somebody should be hitting high, but there's a lot of this nonsense of I'm going to just tackle him up top. And that running back was a beast. That guy has legs the size of, both of mine put together, and you're not bringing him down with you just grabbing his arm and thinking he's going to go down. And that guy carried the pile multiple times. And then we fixed it. So we did that in the first half. Second half, we decided we tackle harder. So, I think we can do it. I think we've got it. I'm with Taylor. I think it's there. It's the consistency part. Are you willing to do it for 60 minutes? And we did some half measure plays yesterday. Then Cole Potts was right. There was some loafing going on, and there was some, at the end of the day, it wasn't full measure for 60 minutes. And that's not how we play football. And it's full 60 minutes. I don't care who we're playing. We mash them, and we continue to mash them. And if you're not willing to do that, put your hand up, because somebody else will go in.
I'll talk a little bit
when
about.
You look at it, right? We had 2 sacks for the game. Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
Sorry.
I
I was
was
just
gonna
going to
say,
say that,
so we had
all right,
2 sacks. We gave up 109 yards rushing, right? Like, I'm curious, like, when's the last time we gave up 2 straight 100-yard games? I don't know what the answer is to that, but that was we gave up what 150 or 110 or whatever it was against Charlotte, 109 against Gardner-Webb. And also, I'll echo what Steve is saying, right? Like, I don't know the last time I saw a defensive line get washed down like they did that one portion of the third quarter. And I don't think it's a skill. I mean, yes, like could there be a skill gap? Maybe, but like we have good players. And part of me wonders like how much of them, and Dobbs talked about being in the right alignment, knowing your assignment. They look like we were kind of tentative. We weren't sure if we were supposed to be this gap. Was this guy supposed to go here? Was this guy supposed to cover the A gap? Was this guy was supposed to set the edge? It looked like we were thinking a lot. And I don't know why, right? Obviously, new defensive coordinator, new defense. We talked a lot about this being like NFL style defense. I just want to see the guys run around and play. I don't think there's a lot of running around and freely and just like going 100 miles an hour. There's a lot of thinking out there. And I don't know the answer to that, right? But to Steve's point, it's consistency, is bringing it in every play, getting the calls out, understanding their responsibilities, and just executing. Because when we did that third quarter, when we came out with energy, we stopped them 3 plays in a row. We got a sack. We did what we needed to do. But then there's some plays where I'm like, we're getting pushed 5 yards down the field. And nothing against the FCS guys. Like we were just there, but it was a bit of a head scratcher and very frustrating to see all around. But once again, I'm glad we got it done and it was against Gardner-Webb and we can move on.
Taylor.
yeah, I was just going to say the joke kind of became with the guys I was watching the game with was, I bet they're going to catch it over the middle. I bet they're going to catch it over the middle. Hey, look, they're catching it over the middle. I mean,
Definitely some holes in that zone.
Yeah.
Sure.
And again, this is where, Steve mentioned, not calling out people by name. I think that's because, you might perceive this guy missed the zone when what you don't know was the wrong signal was brought in, or they didn't get the right signal, or his teammate was, so this is where I get to the point. I said, we're not looking good, but I don't know why. I don't know how the sausage is being made. I just know it doesn't taste very good right now.
Can I say to that there are a lot of guys on this roster who have played a lot of football, but there's a lot of guys on this roster who also haven't played football in a number of years because of injuries,
Right.
or their roles in other programs. So what may look one way on paper, but these are guys who have to go through it a bit to not only figure out their role from a continuity perspective with the group, but their individual gameplay, because they just haven't played a lot of football. And that is something in this portal era you're going to see a lot. And that may be a direct result of not only what we're seeing in terms of our struggles, but why you're seeing so many kind of head scratching outcomes across the country is there's just, and again, it's not an excuse, but it's just a reality of this unprecedented movement that we're all experiencing, and guys having to figure it out under fire in real time. Because you could talk about practice, you could talk about scrimmages, you could talk about, it's not the same thing. We all know that. Anybody's played at any level of sports. None of us are college football players by any stretch of the imagination, but we all played some level of sports. And, it's just different in practice than when you're playing against another team. And especially when you're playing in an environment and that many people, it takes time. Is obviously more time than we want to see, but
Right.
it's a reality.
And I think there's a good reason for every mistake that's been made the last 2 games. The question is, can those good reasons be overcome in the next 2 weeks? If I look at a Coach Bob Chesney resume, I look at that and I see what he's been able to do with other programs, and I have a lot. You have to have a lot of faith to say yes. I mean that opportunity is there. I would be very shocked and frankly disappointed if the UNC game is not the best game so far this year of what we've played. I've also seen it said, you got to imagine that there's some stuff being held back. And I think that's the case. I don't know if it's as much the case to justify kind of how the games have turned out. And, again, Steve hit the nail on the head talking about lack of consistency. I could clip parts of the first half and second half and put together some defensive clips that you would have thought, they didn't gain more than 10 yards the whole game. And I'm talking about plays, some of those screen passes, some of those runs where there were 4 or 5 guys on top of the ball before it left the quarterback's hands. And it just looked really impressive. The problem I think I saw where they had 14 minutes of possession in the second half. So, when they needed to step up and make a play, they were there. I mean, they allowed only 6 points yesterday. They allowed only 7 points the week before, but it's the in between where, Gardner-Webb was in a position to tie the game at the end. And that's a tough pill to swallow when you see the schedule ahead of you and when you want to, have a chance to be a three-peat Eastern Division champ. So consistency I'd like to see. I would imagine coaching is going to play a big role in that in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I mean, Carolina is a very winnable game, but it will not be winnable if the execution, the play that we've seen the last 2 weeks ends up being in the third game.
Steve?
No, I don't disagree with any of that. There were so many small things that I picked up on once I rewatched it that, we would have 40 yards of offense and then we'd hold. On defense, we would make a big stop and then there would be a pass interference call. Or, we shot ourselves in the foot at the wrong time almost every time yesterday. The kicking. Now, if he wants to get mad at me because I'm calling him out, but I'm not calling him out. I'm just going to tell you why I could see he missed the first one because I watched it. He's got a draw kick. He likes to kick it right to left, and so I watched him. Massive leg, and on the first field goal, he kicked it straight. That's all that happened. He was playing the draw. He didn't draw the ball, and he kicked it straight. Past the net. The other two times he kicked, he lined up on the left hash. He still had his draw, but he kicked straight again. But this time it didn't matter because his straight kick went through the uprights because he was already on the left. It was small little things like that I was noticing, and we had that all over the field. We had it all. We took a different angle on the punt, and when Ryan hit the punt, one of the punts that we were trying to down there, and we took one of the wrong angles going in, and the ball squirted into the end zone. Something that small. You can see it on the tape. You couldn't see it in the stadium. You just can't. But we had so many of those that you don't usually have. You don't usually have those many missed assignments in one game and still win that game. And that's, I think I totaled about 11 of those, which we just normally just don't have. So there's a lot of cleaning up. I think we can get it cleaned up. I know people say we're going to clean this up. I have all the faith in the world in these guys. And we've seen a lot of practices. We've seen a lot of the stuff they've been doing. And I know it's not a game, but I've seen what they can do. And I have a feeling getting this by right now and giving them the time to work on this stuff, you're not going to see it again. And you heard Jacob Dobbs say it. You heard Cole Potts say it. You heard Tyler. Tyler texted me after he got off here, and he goes, "We will fix everything. You will not see a game like that again this year." And I believe wholeheartedly we won't.
Yeah, and I'd just say, we're no secrets here. We've been fortunate because of some work that we've done to get to know these guys. There is, at least in my experience in the past, the character in this room is hard to overstate. And where there may be areas of deficiency or areas of growth opportunity for this program, the one thing I am confident in is that there's going to be no shortage of strong voices in that locker room, both from the coaching staff perspective and the athlete perspective, pushing this program to get to where we need to be. And look, I don't know if I hope we go undefeated in this season, and but I'm just calling us all out for what we said in the preseason. We're going to lose some games this season, probably. It's just the nature of FBS football. And one thing that's happened is we have had a charmed 2-year transition to the FBS world. But it's about to ramp up in a big way. And the one thing I take some heart in is that when you look at Sunbelt competition so far, there's a lot of inconsistency in our conference at the moment. There's a lot of inconsistency across the Group of 5 landscape. And that is because, let's be honest here, a lot of the top talent at the Group of 5 level, because of this portal era, is no longer playing in the Group of 5. They're now at Indiana. They're at P5 programs across the country. And there is going to be some hiccups as we go through these seasons going forward. And if people want to call me a Montpelier collective hack, I'm the first person to say we need to make sure consistently going forward that we continue to make sure that we have the resources necessary to continue to give our program and our coaching staff as resources they need to go out and recruit the best possible talent, to retain the best possible talent. Cannot mention that enough because that is a factor here, and it's going to be a factor for years to come. But we're going to see wild outcomes, and it's just something that I think we're all going to have to get used to. Sometimes it's going to work in your advantage. You're going to find a diamond in the rough, and we may still have some diamonds in the rough on this roster who haven't had their moment yet. Let's be honest about one thing: we haven't seen Taji Hudson yet this season in a JMU uniform. What is he going to bring to this lineup? We haven't seen Tyshawn Wyatt in our offensive line when he comes back. What difference is he going to make? And I'm sure there are other names, younger players there are that we haven't heard of, that or haven't at least had their opportunity to shine, that are going to have an opportunity probably in the next 2 weeks to get their opportunity on this roster to make a moment in time. And I have full faith that we're going to do it. But I also am a realist and honest in saying that there are going to be some growing pains as we go throughout the season. It's just numbers, and it's just the nature of G5 football now. It just is.
Well, I'm gonna give a shout out, right? We're talking about portal players, new additions, like, and also improvement from week 1 to week 2. Eric O'Neill, who we've had on the show, had a really good game against Gardner-Webb. I think he was one of the few players I thought really dominated the line of scrimmage. And talk about it also from a back end, like Chris Sheeran, who started at UConn. Had a really good game against Gardner-Webb. I think, we talk a little bit about like the hockey line shuffle and all the mass substitutions. I think he solidified a spot somewhere in the secondary. I don't know what it is, whether he's going to be at Rover, free, or strong, or whatever, but he made a lot of plays in the second half. And then also like Ray Scott, coming from USC/Fresno State, came up big in the fourth quarter. And you're talking about an older, seasoned vet, clutch situation. Did he earn some playing time? Maybe, right? Like, I think he really came out at the end of the game and made some really key tackles later on that put us in a really good position. So I know, don't want to be all doom and gloom. We're going to be fine. But I think we have some guys that are really standing out. Kyrie Mans as well. I think he had another good game where I think he had another half sack, had a couple TFLs, like all over the field, like really good contributions.
And can we mention really quick, probably one of the better interceptions you're ever going to see in a college football game, Chauncey Logan.
Chauncey, that was fantastic.
What a play, man. And his continued growth.
It happened right in front of us. He ripped the ball out of the receiver. Like, that was a really good play. He played, I think, Chauncey Logan, the first 2 games, the way he's been playing the football in the air and playing through the receiver has been an awesome area of improvement from him. Because, like, we know he has all the physical tools. He can run, but his confidence level of just like trusting his eyes, trusting his feet, trusting his legs, and playing through people, really good to see in the first 2 games.
Awesome. All right, guys. Now, perfect time for our final thoughts. I'm going to go start with you, Taylor. Just anything that you're thinking as we head into the bye week, or anything that's going around the JMU world.
I said it last week. I still think our backfield, our running backs, is one of the strongest components of this team. We didn't get to see a lot of Io because he was hurt. But his performance at Charlotte, I'm excited to see what he can do the rest of the year. George Pettaway, I mean, there were just not just his speed, but his agility and his strength for his size. And then you got a guy like Tyler Purdy to come in there and to be one of your 3 running backs. He wins the player of the game, obviously, gets the only touchdown of the game. I'm really excited about our running backs. And the last thing, QB play, it's just got to get better. Now, again, there's a lot that goes into QB play. There's the offensive line and the blocking scheme. There's the receivers and running the routes and just knowing the plays of the new offensive playbook that we have. And then there's our quarterback, being able to read the coverage and make the right play, not have that wide-eyed look. So, I think there goes a lot into QB play, and I think a lot of times, sometimes the QB gets the blame for things that sometimes are a team effort. But overall, got to have better QB play. I'd love to see the both offensive and defensive line really step up. And I said it last night that this UNC game, it's not going to make or break the season, but it will set the tone for what the rest of the season is going to be. I think we have an opportunity to really show out, and we're going to come home to a Ball State team that, again, not overlooking anybody, but that's going to be one of the easier games before we get into a Sun Belt conference that, don't quote me on this, but I believe right now the Sun Belt overall is 7-11 in FBS games. So early on, it doesn't look like the Sun Belt Conference is the best of the G5, but you saw an App State team that I felt pretty confident would give Clemson a game, maybe even pull off an upset. And then you saw App State. I mean, the game was over in the first quarter, So there's just so many question marks for me to speak too absolute to anything. And call me a homer. That's why I still just have a lot of high hopes and expectations for this team. But let's get to the end of September and really be able to reevaluate what the rest of the year is going to look like.
Michael.
So I was thinking about like closing remarks. I had a tweet I think last night where I go, we're 2-0. Preseason is over. Let's take time to figure out who our best 22 on the field is going to be on offense and defense. And when I look back and go, when I look at the training camp, they had, I think David Riggert had 47 player interviews. Tons of assistant coaches were on the radio broadcast. As a JMU fan, it's been a phenomenal time to really look into the program. But I think we've got 2 weeks, and I think we've got an opportunity to lock it down in the sense of refocus, understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. And Chesney said it best. It's an opportunity to self-scout. Do we have the right people in the right places? Do we have the right scheme in place? Are there people that, yes, it was they may have had misassignments in game 1, but those same misassignments are in game 2. Okay, is it time to do something different? So I think we've got an opportunity to really lock down, reassess. Preseason is over. Who are starting 22? If there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, if the hockey line substitutions aren't working, who are the people that we're going to rely on? And I know we're 10 deep in the D line, but should we have 8 people that we really believe in? We have 9 offensive linemen that have played consistently the last 2 games. Does it need to be 9? I don't know, but maybe it could be 6 or 7. Or maybe we have 5 of the best ones and we played them to the end, because at the end of the day, that's a position on the field that needs to gel and they need to develop some sort of consistency. And from Taylor's point on the quarterback play, I think at the end of the day, it's how do we get settled and get comfortable? We said on this podcast, once again, John brought it up earlier in this conversation, it's the first team that get comfortable. And whether that's shot plays on first down or just hitting the plays that are in front of you. I look back in the first drive, we overshot Ymir Knight coming across the crossing route. And then we had a great play on 4th down where Logan Kyle, I think, didn't realize how open he was. And I think Chesney said it best. Success breeds confidence. The more success we can find on the field, the more belief that we can to just run a play and believe it's going to work and then execute, the better off we are. So it's strange, right? Like 65 new players, 60 bunch of guys that are being asked to play key positions and key roles and key responsibilities. That's a lot to ask for people that maybe weren't in that position last year, but we're going to have to figure it out. So preseason is over. We're 2-0. Let's put the best guys on the field to put us in a position to win. And we've got 2 weeks to figure it out. I can't wait to see what's going to happen against Chapel Hill.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Steve.
Well, my dad used to tell me, and it worked. I guess you don't get to do that with kids anymore. We never did it. But when I was, you probably find it hard to believe, but I was a bit of a ornery kid. And my dad used to tell me, those that don't listen have to feel. Coach Chesney was preaching this entire week. This is our Super Bowl, just like it's their Super Bowl. And if you're not going to listen to that, then at the same time, there's going to be some ramifications to it. And to Michael's point, it's time to figure out kind of how that works. We got 2 games of tape. You are who you are on tape. And at the end of the day, that's where it comes down to. You may have practiced really well, and you may have been great in fall camp, but we've got 2 game tapes of you. So at the end of the day, it's an evaluation we all do in our jobs. Not everybody's an exceeds employee. Most people are average employees. 80% of them are average. 10% are not. 10% are exceeds. And we've got to figure out where to plug these folks. And you've got folks, you got very talented folks, but now's the time. We've got to help out Zoe. And, if it's not having the 15-yard outplay on the first play, and that's not in his wheelhouse, give him a 5-yard down and out. You saw Gardner-Webb do it all damn day. They were 5-yard and 7-yard hitches and sitting down in the. We've got those plays in our playbook. Let's get him comfortable quickly. Now, did he do it? I thought Zoe did fine. I have 0 issues with what was yesterday. I think there was a lot of things he could clean up. They all can. But at the end of the day, it's not a QB issue in my mind. we've got to put everything we've got into this, and Chesney's been preaching it. And I think now that he's now seen it, now these guys have seen it, they now understand what it means. So full measure, all you do. And I don't want to hear people booing in my stands. That annoyed me like there was no tomorrow. That is not who we are. I don't want to hear they booed at Michigan. We're not Michigan. I don't want to hear they boo in other places. We're JMU. We open a door for people. I don't slam a door in somebody's face, and that's what it felt like to me. We do not boo our team. Now, if you've got an issue with it and you want to boo in your heart, keep your mouth shut. If you can't, don't come to the game, because I don't want to hear people booing this team. They put a lot of work into it. At the end of the day, it wasn't a great half. They knew it wasn't a great half. They don't need to hear boos. We got recruits in the stands. We've got brand new people, brand new families there, and that's embarrassing to me to have our fan base boo them. So, if you don't like it and you want your tickets back, send me an email. I'll write you a check. You don't have to come. How about that? So that's my little wrestling spiel for our fan base. Clean it up, fans. Not only do they need to clean some things up, we need to clean some things up.
Well, my final thought is to just end on a positive note. The beauty of this program, and when I say program, I mean this show specifically, is we have given fans and we've had the chance to introduce you to these people. You got a chance to see Tyler Purdy. You've got a chance to see George Pettaway. You've got a chance to see multiple offensive linemen. You go through this roster over the last couple of months. We've had over a dozen of players on this broadcast. These are good guys who believe in this program. They want to get this right. So my message to this fan base over the next 2 weeks is we're all a little anxious. We're all a little upset at points. We'd like to see 2-0 with 2 big blowouts, but it hasn't happened that way. But one thing I know that can help this group get to where we want to be is by seeing positive comments, by seeing your belief, by seeing your energy in this team, by making sure we have a sea of purple in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because the beauty of a school like North Carolina, they're really big on their brand, so that everyone there will be wearing blue. So anybody in purple is going to stand out in a big way. Show these players, show these coaches your support, because it does matter. They listen to programs like this. They see your comments on social media. They see them on Instagram. They know what they need to do. Remember, they're the football players. They're the coaches. This is their livelihood. This is what they're invested in. And the best way that we can help them get to where they want to be and where we all want to see them is by continuing to support this team, continuing to believe in them, and having some faith, but also having some patience. Because again, it may take longer than we want to see. And that's the value you can have in fans. Obviously, you're a fan. You can do whatever you choose to do. You buy a ticket. It's your social media accounts. Post what you want to post. But if you want to see this team be successful, get behind them, invest in them, and let's have a lot of positivity as we get towards, again, as Taylor said, every one of our goals is still in front of us because we haven't lost the game yet. It may feel like 0-2, but we're 2-0. And that's my final thought. Gentlemen, as always, thank you for a great episode. Want to also thank Tyler Purdy, Skyline Financial Partners. Want to thank Will Driscoll for the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Please look into them as we try to grow their engagement and grow the ability to, again, honor and recognize those athletes from across the Commonwealth of Virginia who have done great things in sports history. As always, to our sponsors, the Montpelier Collective, get your bottle of Champions Drive. There's still a few left. ChampionsDR.com. Where's Woody? Talent Corps, excuse me. Jared corrected me on it. It's Talent Corps, like the Marine Corps. It's going to take me some time. Where's Woody? Your Purple Nation and Shoker Enterprises. And with that, we'll be back next week for another episode of JMU Sound Up. As always, go Dukes. To our fans, thank you for joining the discussion today. You make the show better the more you engage with us, and it's always appreciated. Thanks for everyone who supported our Instagram reels and the fun we've been having with our little weekly promos. We'll keep those going as we go throughout the season. And with that, this is another episode of JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes. Talk to you next week.